Hello, Priscilla, Patricia, how you doing? Hello.
Hello, I'm doing good. And you, how are you doing? It's Monday.
You. It's Monday and it's my favorite month of the year. I just love July. The light is so uplifting. And I thought so I just want to say hello to everybody who's joining us. The two of us together are here with you to talk about being trauma survivors walking each other home. I'm Holly Elisa Bruno and I am with.
Priscilla Rodriguez.
And Priscilla is a practitioner. Tell us a little bit about what you do with in regards to trauma surviving.
Yes, I'm a trauma, I'm tr advanced trauma counselor, but I work with early childhood. I'm a specialist in early childhood. So I work, and I have a therapy dog who joins me from time to time.
Who has pink paws, as I
He
remember.
has big paw. Yes.
All right. So great. Glad you're here. And I'm Holly Elisa Bruno. I am a lifelong trauma survivor, and I have in everything that I've done aimed to make sense of the trauma that I was exposed to for my first 17 years of life, aimed to make sense of it so that it can inform, uplift, and make my life more meaningful rather than run from it. Because the automatic response of my traumatized brain, is to get out of here. I don't want to have to do this. I don't even want to have to talk about it. But we do talk about it. We do open to the possibilities that it brings. And instead of making it an either or, it's really wrong, it's really bad, or it's enlightening and causing us to have these beautiful lives because we've learned so much from it. It's not an either or. To me, Priscilla, it is an everyday way of choosing to have a meaningful life. Not always easy, often difficult. And often being with people who are also trauma survivors who might even not know they're trauma survivors. And often hearing, as I did in my own family, we're fine, we rose above it. Or we never had a problem to begin with, we're the perfect family. Ah, why do you think we devote so much time to denying that we are trauma survivors, that we were traumatized?
Yes, thank you so much. I think that's a very good way to start this podcast today. And I want to share that I'm also a trauma survivor. I live every day with trauma, and I think that as trauma survivors, that's our story. And part of what makes us great is us choosing to change that narrative and use our story to support others. And I think part of why it's in our past or like in the family, they tell us, oh, just pass the page or just forget about it. It's the denial to accept. Also, they feel it's easier. It's not wanting to face it. It's easier to just think you're going to get over it. And I want to say also it's the lack of understanding that our body does keep scores.
That is a powerful illusion that you just made, because many people who are trauma survivors have read and reread Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. And the thing that that did for me, many things it helped me with, but one of them is to simply acknowledge the truth that my body is always full of reminders that things were done to me from pre-birth and at the moment of birth, after birth, to tell me to be very afraid. Not only to be very afraid, but to fear for my life, and to never feel safe on earth, to always feel like I had to earn. This was something, because it leads to achievement addiction. I always felt, Priscilla, I had to earn every right to every breath. Just being. And the cliche about being a human being rather than a human doing, I never had the option of being a human being. I always had to bring honor to my family, and not just an A on a report card because that was expected. A pluses were expected. No, I had to bring honor to my parents and my ancestors in a way that made the whole family look good and no one could question the family. And it had to be a really, let me see if I can articulate this. It had to be such a glowing honoring of my family that there was a respect bestowed on everyone who passed before me, and well at the same time, not feeling anything of confidence for myself, not feeling any sense of achievement for myself. That was taboo. So there's another either or. It's making the family be everything, be just exemplary, and making myself be as small as possible so that all I am is a minor clog. That's cliche. I don't like a minor player in making the media itself the honorable place, the honorable entity. What is that about? What do you think that's about?
I think it's based on how culture is shaped, right? We are brought up in a culture, and maybe just because you're a little older than me, you may be able to tell me more about this, but women were taught to be submissive to the men, no matter what. They were the man of the house, they make the rules, and those don't get questioned, right? Same
Right.
as for children. You
Mhm.
guys, it's an entitlement, power over idea. And part of what we call we see this as familiarism, right? And we create a culture where we don't question, where we just obey. And
Mhm.
I believe in part of what I do tell in when I'm working with children and families, especially in my culture, is children's the body does stay there. No. Just because they don't know how to express it because they don't know the words or they're not allowed to say it, that doesn't mean it's not happening. A lot of times because we know that it's wrong, the behavior or the situation, and has been, and I'm saying we as if I was a child, but right, if you think about in a kid's brain, they are exposed to adversity and they know that it's wrong. They just saw something they shouldn't have not been exposed to. They just heard those words that they have gotten pop out for. How so even sharing it can be hard. So what happens is just stays in their brain and it does create starts it kind of the way I explain it to parents, it kind of like nails it in the brain. It's like a nail put in the brain, and until that nail doesn't come out, it creates an effect because it was never meant to be in the brain. When we get a
I'm hearing
foreign
you.
object in our body discharges it sometimes, but when it doesn't, we could get bacteria from that, we could get an infection, we may have to go see a doctor so they can take that foreign object out of our body. And the same happens when we are exposed to things.
I'm going to go with that image because nailing it. I mean, we have a common phrase now. She nailed it. And what does that mean? That there's no question. She just really told the truth. Okay. But I grew up in a family that had these fascinating glass covered collections of beautiful butterflies, dead, of course, and they were nailed, discreetly nailed to this background, and then put in a container, a glass covered container, handmade of wood. You could open the top and look more closely, but you weren't supposed to open the top often because that would deteriorate these preserved beauties. Now, the sense I'm making of that is when something gets nailed, it's stuck in one moment which appears to be timeless. It's only one moment. And in that being stuck, that becomes the exemplar, that becomes the way we're always supposed to be. So when a butterfly gets captured and it's at that becomes the way, the perfection that we all need to aim for. Now, everything I know has a life cycle. And every part of the life cycle is about extrapolating, and that's an intellectual world. It's about seeking, diving into, taking a sounding for what does this mean? And what does it mean to me? Now, here's something that I want to also follow up on what you're saying about this nailing it, because in the hierarchy with which we were raised, my cultures were hierarchical, your cultures were hierarchical. Our American regime now is extremely hierarchical, from promoting testosterone as the model to if you don't like something, bomb them to extinction, to annihilation. And that only comes up when someone feels entitled to have the power over everything. Here's what is, I'm going to try to articulate this. Children have understanding. We come to the earth with understanding. And yet, what do we do with that understanding? In most cases of child developing, children are taught the way to be. What I have learned in my time in early childhood education is that children are invited to find out who they are in the context of their culture, in the context of their family, in the context of, but not defined by. For me, I developed my own language because neither of my parents was able to parent me. My father as a narcissist, and there are many people listening who have narcissists in your families. Narcissists are constitutionally unable to see other people. And if another person becomes too strong, Priscilla, what happens if you're in the presence of a narcissist and you start getting confident? You start expressing yourself. What happens? It's like the dog going, whoa.
Yeah, and it's the second time, so I'm not allowing her in my space no more.
All right.
So when you're, I'm sorry, when what
Yeah,
was
yeah. So a narcissist, what I'm talking about here is the beauty of a child unfolding to become who she's meant to be. And that is a lifelong process of identity, understanding ourselves. But the way of a hierarchy is almost the way of a narcissist. A narcissist defines everything. A narcissist does not allow anything except the narcissist's experience. So here's my question. In the face of hierarchy, in the face of a narcissist, in the face of a person who's got power over, what chance does a self-defining anybody, baby, adolescent, woman, sensitive man, what chance does anybody have of creating her own identity in the presence of the hierarchy into which most of us are born?
not sure by numbers the chances. It can be very hard because they will struggle, right? Even when you because either you obey and now if you don't obey, you become defiant, and then you carry with the guilt of being defiant to the people who wants the best for you. And if
Allegedly.
you obey, now you're going by it, but you never get to find your real truth to yourself.
What is obedience, Priscilla? What does that mean to you? Because that's a major dynamic of the hierarchy.
Yes, obedience. And I did share, I don't know if you there was these two podcasters and they were saying that it's part of our responsibility to honor and look for appearance despite of what they did to us. So
Mm.
obedient, many parents who are narcissistic, there's also something called narcissistic parenting, and it's
Yes.
based on that. Um,
Yes.
because one of the things that if you don't do as they tell you to do and you don't study the legacy that they have created and you don't practice the same things that they have done, this is now you're in disobedience. And
Mhm.
it's really not, you may not be disobedient if they were to validate who you are, and we can just have like a diverse family. Like we can just be great.
Really powerful thing you're saying here, because there are not just cultures and families that are narcissistically motivated, identified, and their whole practice is narcissistic, which is solipsistic, which means I'm the only person on earth. Everything else revolves around me, and everything else is defined by me. And here's the rub. The mess of this is children come to earth. I mean, how your babies, you've had three babies, right? How did they come to earth? Or three, but they're fascinated, right?
Yes.
Curious, wanting to know, exploring. And they're looking into the eyes of the adults around them to see what is the meaning. I have always looked into the eyes of people to see all that they're conveying. It's not just the environment, it's what's going on. How does the soul, if the eyes are the windows to the soul, what is being spoken? And sadly, Priscilla, what I noticed from birth was it was a one-way street. The projection from the narcissist onto me was, thou shalt learn my way and not have any way of your own. But my natural propinquity as a child was to say, whoa, the wind is coming through that window and that curtain is wafting, and that's fascinating. What causes those ripples? What is that? Constantly fascinating. And what I observe with children is they are constantly curious. But what do we do with the curiosity? What does a narcissistic culture do to curiosity?
It stops it. And Holly, I love what you just said. And because as a person who studies behaviors and I work with children, many people think, oh, you're just playing with children. Little do they know I'm actually seeing how the children perceives and how the world around him. He actually even speaking to me through play. And I can literally see a family where there's a structure, where there's a demand, where the child, it's not being creative versus the child who is allowed for creativity. You could see this in the way they dress. You could see in the way they speak. You could see this in the way they even share their opinion at times.
Or even if they're allowed to share their opinion, because some children learn to be heard. I'm
yes,
sorry, to be
so
seen, not heard.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like you could see this in different ways because the childrens that are raised, or even like I have had kids that have told me, I could tell you more, but I'm not supposed to. And me saying it's okay. So, but what I do tell the parent in another way is allow your child, this is a space for them to express themselves. If we teach our children how to not express themselves, why bring them to therapy?
And there is another phrase, Priscilla, that nails it. I think the opposite of nails it is liberates it, sets it free, because this whole point of self-expression is powerful. In narcissistic, fascist, paternalistic regimes of any sort, whether it's a family, a system, a government, there is no encouragement of self-expression, because that would mean something's getting expressed other than the way of being. And I got it that there were two consequences, immediate consequences, if I expressed myself in any way from birth on. Number one was guilting and shaming. If I expressed myself and it was not the party line, I was so shamed that I would cover my face.
Mm.
I wouldn't want people to see me. And I would look down and I would feel unworthy. That was point one. And that was often enough that people carry that through a lifetime, fear of shame, because fear of shame is annihilating. It annihilates the person, it annihilates the spirit. And the second way of control, besides shaming, is shunning. Many cultures, including the one I was raised with, the island culture of Sicily, if you were not appropriate, and particularly as a female, you were no longer member of the family. And the Sicilian expression was translated as, "You will not cross my door again." And there is another Sicilian expression which says, "Blessed is the door out of which goes the dead daughter." A daughter in particular that is seen as disobedient. Disobedience is self-expression, is not only not wanted, she has no identity. And not only that, she's a danger because, oh my God, what could happen with a daughter that's out of control? Well, she might get pregnant. And then the whole line, the whole perfection line, is not controlled by the family. The daughter chooses, or the daughter finds out who she's going to do her gene pool with. I think that's that whole strangling, Priscilla, of identity is an either or. You have no, in my family, you have no right to be yourself. And the principle was obedience. In fact, when my oldest sister, and her name was appropriately Karen, this is in a Sicilian family where there's no term for Karen, but she was named Karen because that was the way of passing. Give a child a name that everybody in the culture will know, like Karen, and you'll be fine. So Karen, at her funeral, she had chosen all of the hymns. And it saddened me deeply, but it also helped me understand. Every hymn she chose was about being obedient, obedience. And for me, Priscilla, obedience is based in fear. And fear is a way of destroying self-expression. How do you tell me what are your thoughts and feelings about this?
We should be, from the moment children are born, we should be able to negotiate what we're hoping to see. I was brought up in a culture where people would tell me, you don't give your kids explanation. And I was a single mom with my children, like, and I felt like I needed to because I was giving them the explanation that I wish I heard. One of the things that I also tell parents, and I try to help them understand is if these behaviors, if you don't allow a child to express themselves, when they become adolescent and they're learning their identity, they're going to show the things that they're still holding on from early childhood. Yes, and this is where we see children too that they say are rebellious, that have low self-esteem. And the real question when we're working with adolescents that we should think is the same question we ask when we're working with early childhood. What is this behavior trying to tell me? What is happening on my child's life that he is expressing himself through this? Is it their friends? Is it me? I in the radio, I actually spoke about that like maybe 2 Saturdays ago. Like, many times we have these expectations and we are minimizing the true problem and we are shutting their mouth up. We're not allowing them to express themselves. We put fears in the kid's life when they're supposed to be learning, when you teach them skills by negotiating, allowing them to have a voice, but also understanding boundaries through expression, allowing them to have that space.
See, now that is powerful because what I see in your words is that when a child is shut down, when a child is taught, you don't have anything to express, the child knows she's got plenty to express. I mean, every time
A lot.
a lot. I mean, from birth, most babies have things to say, right? And the interactions, if a baby's being listened to, the baby is so active and so involved. And if the baby is being shut down, everything goes inside. And here's what I observe: the rest of life becomes an uncovering, a releasing, a discovering, and a painful reconstruction of hello, puppy dog, of what was not allowed. Great literature. I mean, I was a literature major. Great literature was for years seen as the search for the father. Because who knew who the father was? The father was just this imposition of the way the world was supposed to be. And the quest
One,
was,
one,
go ahead.
my
Yeah.
sister's here, but I'm hearing you.
Okay, sweetheart. Okay. Hello, sister. Ah, so not to go off on a this is Priscilla's ancestor. This is her grandmother who died just in the last couple of months. And when we look to our ancestors, what did they translate to us? Especially the women, because the women didn't just translate didn't just translate the male culture, but the women. Priscilla, I'm talking about the picture of your grandmother in the background, because the question is, what do our ancestors, particularly the women, tell us about self-expression? And I'm going to say right out loud, both of my grandmothers on both sides were so defiled for self-expression that they were scientifically annihilated. Both grandmothers were part of the 19th, 20th, early 20th century way of giving shock treatment to shut a woman up. When they were depressed, my Sicilian grandmother, who never spoke English, when after she'd had 14 pregnancies and only 8 of those children survived, of course she was depressed. And after she could no longer give birth to children, she had what was called a nervous breakdown. But who, why, what? Because this woman had never had a chance to express herself. Somehow she was raised in a convent, and being raised in a convent is not your most prolific place to be self-expressive. From there, at age, I think, 18, she married my grandfather, Michele Bruno, and he was the patriarch. And so for all of those years of childbirth, she never had self-expression. When she couldn't give birth to children anymore, who was she? Well, that's a terribly legitimate question. And what happened was it was driving her crazy. And so they hospitalized her. First, the daughters, not the sons. The daughters put her in a home where she could be loved. But when the daughters couldn't afford, and this was in the, come on, when women were earning nothing, the daughters couldn't afford to pay for this wonderful home for my grandmother, Adolorata, Our Lady of Sorrows. Then the grandmother got put into a New York State insane asylum. And in insane asylums, where you were sent, often if you were a woman, out of control by the patriarchy, you were given shock treatment. Both of my grandmothers were given shock treatment. And that terrified me. It terrified my mother so much that when she was at the end of her life and she had had strokes and she really needed assisted living, she needed full care, she would rather die than go into one of those homes. That was her desire. She did not want to ever be like her mother in one of those homes. So I'll just wrap this, Priscilla, by saying we are taught to silence ourselves and to feel such shame. And if we're not shamed, then we get removed from the family by being shunned, as my grandmothers were shunned by being sent to insane asylums. When I was in my 20s, I decided, come on, this was 1960 something. I'm going to I'm a 21-year-old person. I'm going to become sexual. That's what I'm going to do, you know? And I did. And I waited until I had birth control. That's the only reason I really waited. And when I had birth control, then I could start expressing myself and finding out who I was. But the minute it was clear, I made it clear to my family that I was not ready to be married, but I was ready for a relationship. I was disowned. They did not see me. So first off, shaming, and second off, shunning. And you do not cross my door, daughter. I was no longer a member of that family. And that was excruciating because the only identity I was allowed was to be a member of that family. I have a friend I just saw this week who was raised conservative Jewish. And his true love, his first true love was his high school sweetheart. She was Catholic. When they married, when they married, his father sat Shiva for David, meaning David, the son, had died. And so in both of those cultures, the conservative Jewish culture, David was German Jewish, and in the Sicilian culture, if you did not totally accept your command, this is who you are. You're either shunned, shamed, or annihilated. Was that true in your culture? And why is it so necessary, Priscilla, to annihilate?
You know, it's you as you're speaking, my neurons are like chun chun because yes, it
Go,
was
girl.
true. It was true in my culture. They call in the religion, it's the yoke. You don't mix the yoke. You don't marry or see somebody. But one of the things that I want to share with you, it's and I don't know if you noticed because you have trouble, if not the whole world, half of the world, you've seen different cultures. One of the things that I notice is that when people continue living based on what is planted on them rather than
Yes.
them, you could see that the women's are like move like on a check mark. My grandmother, I want to say like people, but I want to give her so much credit because she was probably the one who started in our legacy the change making. She brought my according to the stories, my grandfather was not the best. And my mom used to even have to iron my grandfather's underwears. That's
Hmm.
how strict they were. And
Hmm.
my grandmother was able to leave that alone and continue living. Um,
She literally left him?
she left him. Yes.
Wow.
And I
Who,
my
how
my
did
mom
she support herself? That's because that's the cost. You leave, you have no livelihood.
yes,
How did
and
she
I
do that?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is when she was able to come to the United States. And because there was assistant, my uncles and my
Ah,
mom lived with the assistance and support. But I want to
mhm.
say she broke the chain. All my uncles and my aunts, they are all professional, including my mom. They all went to school and she really planted the seed for them to become. And
Wow.
um and I want to say my aunt, however, my aunt, the one who had my sister, she got married when she was 13.
Hmm.
In her
Wow.
life, it's very different to the other ones. And she also got married with a man who doubles her life. So he was almost the same age as my grandmother. So you could just imagine. But in my culture, that I have still see women who are very submissive to their husbands. And it's like almost you speak to them. And it's the same thing you see in a child when he's not able to speak. It's like a cloud. It's
Yeah.
like they're working on a checklist. Um,
Yes.
there's cultures
Right.
that the moment the girl is born, they already know who they're going to marry this girl to. So she's not even able to decide.
Girl, I hear you. And in so many cultures you're right. I've had this one, I've made a choice to see the world. And I've had many conversations with families and particularly with women. And I'll share with you one that I think encapsulates everything. I was in Malaysia speaking at an early childhood conference where we were looking at how can we make those early childhood years a place for a child to become self-expressive, not shut down. And many of us were from cultures where the children were being shut down. I'm taking a taxi to the airport with two women from Pune, India, which happens to be a place where I've worked. I know Pune. And I'm speaking with one of these women who is powerful. She's the head of an agency. And she stopped me and she said, you are able to talk about narcissism. You're able to talk about it. You're able to say your father was a narcissist. And in our culture, we don't talk about it, we just assume it. And I listened, my ears got very big and my heart got open because I wanted to hear, because she told the truth about patriarch. She said, we just assume every man is going to be a narcissist. We treat him that way. And it was almost as if she was saying, here's the game plan. We inflate his ego. all of the things I learned at my mother's knee. Please him, let him know how bright he is, let him know how handsome he is, let him know how special he is, please the ego. And then on the side, have your own life on the side. And what I'm realizing as we're talking here is, how did your grandmother get free? Well, she did exactly a very smart thing. She could get out of the country and go to another country where there was still discrimination, but there were choices. I think, Priscilla, what I've observed is that in cultures and nations and families where there's no possibility of a woman being free financially, those women stay stuck.
My mother was married with my father for 12 years. And my father kept my mom from seeing her family. We needed to eat with one hand under the table and the other one in straight.
I get it.
We could not hold the chicken wings with the fingers. It was we couldn't speak. We had to pray. We all had assigned seats, and everything was so strict and so religious, perfect picture.
And who got to speak?
Only him. To this day,
True.
it's him. Like right now, my sister is gonna get surgery on the 3rd. I'm going to Puerto Rico on the 2nd, and I'm really thinking, do I really want to be with my mom in the hospital, knowing that he's going to be there? So, because it
What
creates that.
talk about that, because it's, your sister's ill.
Yeah.
She's very ill, right? She has
She has cancer,
cancer.
and it's fair to say, and for those who are listening, is we carry the pain of the dishonest that these people create in their mind, that of our becoming. We
Yes.
are generational breakers. That's what I have learned, and how I have learned how to embrace my adversities, my pain,
Mhm.
and how to survive, and understanding that I was not broken. It's not my fault, but I am dealing with a person who is a challenge. And part of my healing process has been to respect him from a distance and not allowing him on my space. And right now, the last 7 months, my family has gone through some changes, and usually he makes a person who's narcissistic waits for every situation to make it about them.
Exactly. Well, it is about them. There's no question.
There's no question that everything is about them. So every situation through this process, he has find a way to make it about him. And now we have reached a point that I'm telling my mother, you gave him access, and I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to give him that access. And one of the things that I'm thinking is, while my sister is having surgery, he may feel entitled to come to my space. He may look vulnerable. And I honestly don't want no part of it, because I don't want him to use this situation, which is temporary. That's another thing we have to, as we heal, we have to start thinking, is this a temporary feeling? Is this because sometimes based on emotions, we get back in that space. Oh, I'm going to give him a chance. He may change. This may be the opportunity. This not in the moment of situation. It's that not the moment, because that's the emotion moment. So
I
people are
call
not.
that I call that the yearning, Priscilla, because it's the yearning for the way things might have been. And that puts me right in touch with that little girl inside of me who yearned to have a father that cared about her, that wanted to find out who she was. That yearning was with me for decades because I still believed that in him someplace was a person who did want to know. My interpretation of my narcissistic father was he was just covering himself up because he himself had had so much pain. And actually, the literature on narcissism says the reason a person is narcissistic is because he endured or she endured pain. I don't think that's it. I think it's more complex. I think it's actually quite simple. I think a narcissist is born and raised. I think my father was probably born a narcissist and then raised as the prince of his family. Vincenzo Bruno, the head of his family, his father's inheritor. And I was the one to be shamed and annihilated and shunned because I was the last son he could have. And when he couldn't have a son, I was his emblem of shame, great shame. What I think is a narcissist doesn't have to make everything about himself because it already is about himself. And what they exploit, and I think this is exactly what you're helping me remember, when you're there in a hospital, now hospital, as you said, you use the word vulnerability. It's like we're vulnerable in a hospital. People live or die, or something in between in hospitals. It's a very uh, anxious state there. So you're going to be there with your sister who's going to be under the knife, with your mother who's going to be understandably shaken. So there's the relationship with yourself, with your sister, with your mother. And then if your father comes into that and you know from the get-go, it's all about him, I would not want that man in my presence. And in my presence, I mean all we know about neurology, which is if that man is within 5 feet of me, my heart's going to pick up his heart. And his heart is my father's heart was a thinly shrouded gimme, 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 gimme. But he did it charmingly. He
Yeah,
had love
interesting that
bombs. Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
sweetie.
Interesting that you're saying this because even though I'm not there yet, I'm already
Mhm.
feeling the energy.
Oh, yes.
And I think, and I really want us to, I want those that are listening to us that know that we're not going to win, right? Trauma survivors do not win. We carry some sort of pain.
Yes.
And we have to choose which pain it's the most rational, which is the best. Because the pain we choose to carry is the pain we're going to also plant to the growing generation. So I have, because my father is a narcissistic, I have now been okay with putting the pain of the yarning daughter, the daughter that I wish. I no longer believe that I can create a relationship with him. What I can do is make sure that I am teaching my coming generation, including my environment, my including my mom. I told my mother, I think you should get some therapy. And she said, for what? And she said, and I said, you are going through a process. And
Absolutely. Hmm.
I honestly think she's masking. You know, my grandmother passed away in December, and soon after, she finds out my sister has cancer stage 4. And now we're going to find out how much, what's next. And this is not, and one of the things that everybody's concerned is my sister intellectual capacity to be able to face what's coming. So now my mother not only saw her dad and her mother, now she has a daughter. And I'm telling her, you need to see a therapist because these transition, whether she likes it or not, do create some wounds. And she's choosing
But was
not
it
to.
ever what was it ever acceptable in her family to take to get help, to go outside the family?
It's interesting that when I asked her, when I told her, Ma, you need to get some therapists, right? It's so interesting to see how they, including my dad, put me in a pedestal. Oh, my daughter studies psychologist. Priscilla does X, Y, and Z. She's amazing. But the moment Priscilla says, you guys need to get some therapy, uh, my degree gets questioned because when she said, why? I'm like, what do you mean, why? Because we're human. I see a therapist. And I'm telling her, Ma, because I see a therapist and there's things that I'm sharing she has incurred, she has shared. Maybe your parents need to go see therapy too. It's only normal. I have my adult sister here. And right through this process, we may have to make some decision with my other adult sister. And I may be again going in controversy with what my mom wished she hoped that I can handle, that I'm saying, I'm not putting myself through that. I have a life. I want to live my life in peace, and I want to enjoy some of my time, and it's all okay. I'm not giving up, but when I cross that bridge, I know that these are things, and this is why I'm hoping she gets therapy so she could understand what's going on. The sun must have came down for
I
real.
love it. Listen, it's all about control.
Yes.
Tell me the message you got from your parents about control. Who has control? What is control? What does it mean?
Yes. So the message that my parents taught me with their behavior is that I have control. I have the responsibility and the control to make sure that I follow my true me, that I make sure that I find help as well, because, right, I can't fix myself, but there is spaces, there is people, there's professionals that can speak about it, and we can create something more beautiful out of it. And I am also, one thing that I also is that I have control how I'm going to carry the broken pieces that people chose not to fix, and how
And
long.
that is such freedom that you're talking about. And that was verboten, that was prohibited, that was not allowed to even imagine that I had choices. I didn't have choices. Control means thou shalt not have any choice. And the obedient, the good daughter, the good Sicilian daughter, the good Puerto Rican daughter, the good whatever daughter does not have control over anything except her continued choice to be obedient. And that's why my sister, Karen, was the ideal sister because she did exactly what she was supposed to do. My other sister, Lynn, another waspy type name that allowed her to fit, she kept secret. She kept secret her rebellion, and on the outside appeared to be very loyal and following everything that my parents said. But I think here's the deal. I think along with the patriarchy, along with narcissism, and I'm actually having some trouble seeing that there's much of a distinction in many cultures between narcissistic behavior and paternalistic behavior, because what it does is gives not just entitlement, but total power over to one group of people over another. And how do we determine that? Well, we just look at the color of somebody's skin, or we look at somebody's sexuality. And if you've got brown skin and you're a female, there's no question. You're not in charge. And so when someone like Kamala Harris comes up, and I'm thinking, she's great, look at her. And I spoke with so many young men who couldn't imagine. We don't know who she is. Well, Karakaboni, anyway, that annihilation, that's what really bothers me, is that if life is about, now here's the question for trauma recovering people, what's life about? And for me, it's about living it. It's about opening my heart, opening my soul to everything possible so I can learn and choose and then give back out of my unusual put together self. I mean, because I'm a trauma survivor, that gives me strengths. Doesn't mean I would have chosen that path, but it does mean I have strengths. And Dr. Judith Herman in Cambridge, Mass, at Cambridge Hospital, she wrote a book called Trauma and Recovery that I'm sure you know about. It's powerful. And she says trauma survivors have both remarkable destructive capacities and remarkable creative capacities. And Priscilla, what you just said about how you have choices, that's so new. That is the passageway out. And yet, thinking of your own daughters, did society, did culture, did advertisements, were they told by others, yeah, you can be yourself. You can be yourself and express yourself, and that's okay. See,
Yes.
I was
It,
taught if
it
I
was
go ahead,
with
Steve.
with my daughters, with my adult kids, they always had a choice. When Justin Bieber was out, we saw Justin Bieber. She got dressed. Then we had Hannah Montana, Mania. I had my son with Barney. Like they all had a choice. And when I was parenting, giving my kids, allowing my kids to be the kids I wish I had the opportunity to be, I didn't knew that I was allowing them to be. And I want to say, and I always say that that was my inspiration, seeing the outcome in my children. And that was what inspired me to one what you just said. And I love what you said because it's learn, grow, and give back, right? And the way that I see it as a trauma survivor is we identify the pain, we accept it in the way that we know it wasn't meant to happen. It's not my fault. I didn't cause it. And we let go to open up for new opportunities and be free. I think that ever since and I almost want to say that most trauma survivors do that. Like that's why it's so important for us to let people know you're not alone.
Because connection is one of the pathways to freedom.
Yes.
We're taught to isolate. I was taught to isolate. Don't you dare talk with anybody outside the family. And I couldn't talk with anybody in the family. So that whole thing about don't share your dirty linen outside the family is saying, shut up, because there's nobody to talk. Who am I going to talk to? My abuser? Who am I going to talk to? My mother, who's having nervous breakdowns because she never had a voice of her own. There's nobody to talk to in the family. And so if I can't talk with anyone in the family, how can I talk with anyone outside the family? But it's the silence, it's the complicity of silence that stops our voices. And it is the claiming of our voice that your daughter, I've met your daughter, she's gorgeous. She's like, she seems to be the one on the front of your book, right? She's
Yes.
beautiful. My daughter also just very beautiful. I used to like ever since she was like a little one, I would like look at her and think, my God, she was from Korea. And I was so fascinated. She just anyway, I was fascinated. I want to who she is. And I'll tell you one of the most, and that's a question I don't think my parents ever had. They didn't want to know who their children were because they knew. We didn't have a choice. They knew. And today, when I marvel, if I'm in a cafe and I see a parent interacting with a child and the parent is like actually communicating with the child and like child goes blah,
Right.
blah, the parent goes blah, 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 blah. And if the baby does something, the parent laughs and smiles. I have no visceral sense of that as a child. It did not happen. And imagine how that opens up. If being a trauma survivor is about opening, like what you're saying, it's like getting free by saying, I did not cause this. This is not my responsibility, and yet it was done onto me, but I'm not going to continue to be a victim. I'm not going to be defined by what was done to me. I'm going to define myself by who I am. That is so hard because it was so forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
But when I watch children, and I think the way you're raising your son, for example, the little guy's what, 6 or 7 now?
7.
7. I mean, the little guy has got this big grin on his face all the time because he's interacting with life. When I look at pictures of me, it's like there's either this full-hearted fascination or there's this prim and proper, like I was supposed to be. Prim and proper. What the hell is that? I
It's
think
so
of
funny when I see
yeah.
pictures of me, I still see a sassy little girl.
Hmm.
Like
Right.
I can still see that that little girl was in a strict place, but
Hmm.
she still tried because I remember I was like maybe 8 or 9 and I cut my bangs up here. I must have gotten the biggest whooping, but then I had an opportunity to show my bangs. I didn't care about the
Yes.
pain. I had bangs.
Good for you, girl. And that's just because it's our countenance, it's our face. It's like they talk about the face of God. It's our face that shows energetically what exactly what's going on with it. I mean, our body does too, but if we just have our face or even just our eyes, There's constant communication. But when the cloud, when the veil, and look at that, the veil, we're covered. I mean, I've been in so many cultures where women are covered, and yet their eyes are sometimes visible. And the contact that women make with me, when all is visible is their eyes, is fascinating. It's like we have conversations
It's
in
like you could
countries where women have to be covered.
transport
We have
yourself,
conversations.
right? It's like you could just transport yourself, and it's like in their eyes. And let me know if this is true, but it feels like almost like their eyes are telling you something, and your eyes are telling them. But at the end, is there some sort of hope that I can see sometimes with some of these women that I have seen with the veil.
And you know what, you're back to the point of the connection, because the connection that is made says, I'm in here, you're out there. We have so much to share. Wouldn't it be fabulous if we could share? And so they're doing it. We don't stop, you can't hide your eyes and what they're communicating. So I love those moments. They are also our sacred moments, and sometimes they are rebellious moments, and sometimes they are repugnant, where the woman who's in the culture where she has to be hidden cannot unveil herself to another woman. It's not safe. How does she know I'm safe? This woman with the colorful hair. How could I be safe when I'm showing who I am? Isn't that it? Trauma, being a trauma survivor means don't show who you are and don't show up as a human being. And if children are taught, show up, it's okay to be yourself. That's a whole different world that evolves than if children are taught, as I was, shut up, don't show up, keep your knees together. No one wants to see a little girl that's not smiling.
Mhm.
Ah, all of those messages. But my mother literally said to me, encourage a man to talk. Encourage him to talk about himself. Don't talk about yourself. It took me years to be able to talk with people about my own story because I wasn't supposed to have a story. My story was supposed to have been who you were emerging to be in my presence. The best I was a safe space for others to become themselves, but not for me to become myself. But how can people trust me if they don't know who I am?
I do have one last question because I think, oh, it's 4:02.
Yeah, we started late, but we've got about 5 minutes. We need to wrap. You're right. Thank
Do
you.
you find that since you started sharing your story, you feel more free? It's like a aha moment. Because I find myself for the last maybe 6 years to be no, maybe like 4 years, I started sharing and feeling coming a little bit out and maybe start knocking on doors, and I started sharing my story.
When
Um,
did your book come out? How many years ago did you publish your book?
my book came out in 2025. At the
Oh,
end
okay,
of
because
2024, around 2024, I think. Yes. I have,
okay,
yes,
okay.
2024.
I'm asking that because when we are actually able to put our own story into paper, into something that's feelable, touchable, that is, to answer your question, that's a huge release. And one of the processes I went through when I was writing my book was terror, terror that my family, it was a totally visceral and illogical terror, but it was such a strong terror. You tell this story, you could not exist. You tell this story, you could not exist. But you're exactly right. Once we can, here we are back to self-expression. Once you can say who you are, once you can dress like who you are, once we can reveal who we are, then we've got even more to give back. And I'm even asking this question, is it that we must give back, or is it just enough to just be? And I honestly think it's a both end. I think a baby doesn't have to give back to anybody. She can just be her beautiful self. And somebody like Georgia O'Keeffe, She doesn't have to create art anymore. She just could be as she was. Anyway, we need to wrap, but I think what do you think we're getting at in this session? What is it that what's the question we want to leave people listening with? Or maybe what's the question we want to hear from them?
Um, how you gonna use your story? How you gonna use your story? What are you going to do with your story? How would you, if you had to retell your story, how do you want it to sound? Part of what inspired me and helped me was I started reading memoirs. In my grad school, I had to read a memoir, and the one that I
Mm.
chose was about an immigrant mom,
Ah,
who never shared her story, but when she got Alzheimer's, her story was shared, and her daughter, um,
recorded it.
recorded it in everything. I still get goosebumps. I could share the name of it, but it was very inspiring because our children, our family, not family, but our children and other people need to hear our stories, and that we're not going to continue carrying things that didn't belong for us to carry.
This is really powerful what you're saying, and I'd love to know the name of that book, as I'm sure our listeners would, because a huge part of telling my story is believing my story. And why I was so terrified was because I was saying goodbye to all of those strictures that told me, you didn't see that, daughter, which is literally what my father would say to me. You didn't see that, daughter, or that didn't happen. So part of becoming and living the rest of our story is believing our story. And when we're taught that we don't define reality, somebody else defines reality for us, how then do we believe our own story? I watch Hillary Clinton and I watch Kamala Harris tell truths. And before, like even a year ago, they would have been shamed for telling the truth. But now when Hillary says, see, that's what he is, we go, of course. I mean, some of us were going, of course, for a long time, but the reality that a woman brings or a person who's put down, that reality is the truth for that person. And I love the saying, I respect what you say because it's true for you. Because that says to me at any point in your evolution or in my evolution, I can be telling my truth for today, but it's like Heraclitus said, I can't put my foot in the same river twice because the river flows. And so I think our whole lives, our
Like that.
stories are evolving. And one of my great joys in life, Priscilla, is to hear other stories from birth.
Yes, definitely. And it helps us.
Because we were not allowed a story. And when we're not allowed a story, we don't have an identity. I'm looking at what what is said. I mean, someone coming across the border or someone coming from who could label a whole culture? I'm going to annihilate a whole culture, centuries old culture. Or who could say, because you come from this country, you're coming from gang people and you're rapists. Come on. Who
Yeah.
has the
And
capacity to say that?
and I think that continues to echo the importance of us needing to break the chain and share our story because of stories like us and like
Mm-hmm.
ours, changes are happening. We're becoming stronger. We're seeing more empowering moments and a lot more healing.
I hear you, sweetheart. And as each one of us speaks, and all of the ancestors we bring here, and our sisters, our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, all the people, and our daughters, the people we bring with us, I want to close by saying, I sincerely, and I believe Priscilla and I sincerely invite you to at least begin listening to your story. And one thing that helps me hear that story is when something touches me deeply. There's a truth in there that has not yet been voiced. And if I just sit down with my pen, whatever works for you, pen in my dominant hand, pen in my non-dominant hand, or I just talk with the divine. Oh God, this is how this feels. Oh my God. It's the connection with something that's not going to put us down. that lifts us up and invites our story to be told. That's what's worked for me, Priscilla. What's helped you?
Writing,
Yes.
writing, writing. And now I'm starting to use Reels, and I'm in TikTok, and I'm in
Good
Facebook.
for
So
you, girl. Girl, you got to be my coach on how to do all this stuff. Um,
definitely I will.
I'd love it, girl, because I have a new idea for a podcast called Just a Moment.
I love it. I love
Just a
it. Yeah.
moment. And I need to do all that stuff. So just the fact that I'm 80 years old and it doesn't come naturally doesn't mean I can't do it. Anyway, to our listeners, I really am so glad you're with us. Thank you. Keep joining us. And if you ever want to give us feedback, we are hearts open.
Yes. And we want to hear your story.
Do.
And
Even
if
if
you
it's
don't
just
want to share your story and you want us to talk about it, share it
Mhm.
somewhere and we'll talk about it.
We'll get there, girl. We
Yeah.
will honor you. Okay, we're going to say goodbye. And next week, I think our dear third partner here, Denise with a C, will be back.
Yes, we missed Denise today,
Miss
but
you,
next
Denise.
Monday.
See you next week, sweetheart. So thank you so much. I'm going to sign
Thank
us
you.
off, Priscilla. It's been great. And good luck with your new job.
Thank you. Yes.